They left out going bald. I'm thankful, and my lining is still here. But I believe, on top of good genes, I wouldn't like the rest of these club goers where every weekend they was getting their haircut every weekend. I'm like, bro, you was pushing your line back. What is you doing? I don't care how good your barber is. And then you call me cheap. I'm not trying to pay $60 every week. Cause back in the day, haircuts was only $20.
They were.
Now they $60.
Mm-hmm.
So 60 plus 60 is 120. Then another 120. That's 240 a month. That's a bill. What's up, y'all? So, look, let me just go ahead and keep it short with you. Did you know that as of 2024, the United States has a literacy problem? 21% of adults cannot read, and 54% of them have been recorded and it has been documented read below a sixth grade level. That is a catastrophe. But that's where I step in. Now, I'm not going to teach the grown folks how to read and write. However, PSA, the Ghostwriting Solution, has now a new package. It's called the Literacy Liftoff, and it caters to 9th through 12th graders who struggle with reading, writing, and comprehension. This new tutoring service will offer vocabulary skills, teaching students how to literally write from the bottom, literally teaching them how to do an introduction paragraph, how to do a hook, how to do a conclusion, how to add a little razzle dazzle, and how to add their own personal touch to it. Okay. Now, you know what you're saying. Well, Izzy, that's what they go to school for. Absolutely. But as an ex-teacher, the teachers just don't have time. So this program has 3 different packages from 3 different sets of hours that you can take. So if you're an AP, a principal, the student who needs help, the parent of the student, or you just know somebody who needs the help. If you're in the Houston area, you can get in-person tutorials. But if you are not in Houston, there are also virtual options offered as well. So hit me up at my email, theprodigyperspective@gmail.com and or psathepodcast.com, and we will hook you up. What's up, y'all? All right. So we are back again. Another episode. Give me mine in season 9. And we done ended the As a Man series for volume 2. And like I said, we just getting some things going with, I said in this season we were gonna see a lot of familiar faces. I feel like that was an aspect I lost when we did the slight rebrand for season 6. And then, season 6 was a soft rebrand. And then I feel like we lost that. We lost bringing familiar voices back. I feel like we did it a little bit, but that needs to be another thing that I do, because sometimes those people from 2019, that people liked and was like, this is a good episode. What if people want to know what happened to them? And I'm paying attention to that. You know what I'm saying? This one episode from season 5, I believe, randomly just spiked up and just getting views like it's a new episode. So I'm like, I need to tap into that. And that's sometimes like the message for somebody. You might need to go back to your roots, go back to you. You know what I'm saying? We talked about that on my vlog. If you haven't checked it out, In and Out the Office with Izzy Baker, you need to check that out. Get the little behind the scenes. But we get lost in the sauce. And I just want people to understand that when you do something for a long time, you might lose your why along the way. And you might lose a key aspect that really was working, that you try and do something new. And there's nothing wrong with adding new things, but sometimes we lose things that was working. And I am a witness to that. And I am So let's get into this week's meme. The meme reads, if you think your life is over at 30, think again. Inspiration for this week comes from a few places. So actually, season 6, episode 1. You've seen the title, so you know who's in the episode. But a lot of that has to do with this one. And if you don't know what that episode was about, it was called It's Time to Change Your Name. So similar to this episode, although this isn't the first episode of the season, and that one it's still, I got the same person who helped to launch a shift back then. And he's kind of bringing back, or not bringing it back all the way, because we've had episodes already this season, but like It's just proof of bringing back an old voice. Like I said, I'm for sure the goal is to bring back at least one old voice from 6, 7, and 8. 7 is still up in the air, but we got one from 6 and one from 8. And then the inspiration from a quote that I like that says, the only time you really live fully is from 30 to 60. So if you're not even 30 yet, and the youngest millennial turns 29, just know 30 life don't end at 30. It really just starts. All right, y'all. Let me jump to the first segment for today, which is happy hour. All right, folks. So for today's happy hour, I'm going to talk about what have I done at 30. So, and this is something I want y'all to think about too. And I'm gonna ask, and we're gonna put in the comments. What have you done at 30? What can you say you did at 30 that you didn't do? So for me, turning 31 in a few, right? So what I've done at 30, I started working full-time for myself before 30, but I'm able to say that I finally lost more weight that I want to lose. I can say that my mindset has changed from thinking something was wrong with me for not having kids by now, because it's people that had kids by now and they hate who they had kids with, and they didn't fist fought them and some more stuff. And we don't want to go down that road because they'll be there all day, but there's some stuff. I'm over the fact that, you're supposed to have life figured out and you're supposed to be rich by now. I mean, that would be a nice goal. And you see the YouTubers and the vloggers, that you might follow, get inspiration from, and podcasters even who 30 and they, popping severely. You feel me? They got the endorsement deals and all these things. And then it's like, why don't I have that? But they probably grinded a little earlier than you did. And maybe they grinded was a little better, just being honest. Some of us was grinding too. I'm able to say at 30 that my relationship with God has grown a lot. There's certain things I don't do no more. Like, y'all know, it kind of stopped towards the end of my 20s, but like I was drunk, belligerent every weekend, sometimes on Tuesday. And now, like, I don't even be drinking like that for real. I've been not smoking since I had that panic attack like 4 years ago. Might have had crack in it, I don't know, but I had a panic attack and it was real, real bad, y'all. What else? So I don't do that. What else? I can honestly say money management has gotten better for me. I can make $100 stretch, but you live differently when you don't have a consistent check. Back when I had a job along with my business, I was making 10K a month probably and had nothing to show for it but some liquor and some Boohoo Man apparel. Don't be like that. Stop spending all your money on Boohoo Man. Stop spending all your money on Fashion Nova Men too. And you better not be spending your money on Shein. Guys, Shein, it's like that forever. I don't care. With Shein, it's like it's up. I'm gonna meet the CEO. You're gonna be calling it Izzy's in a minute. Ain't gonna be Shein no more. It's gonna be Izzy's. What else have I learned at 30? Yeah. I think there's some good things I learned. I'm sure it's gonna be some more by the time this drop, and I'll probably even put it in the comments or something. But I don't want to do too much ranting. I have a guest today. Brought him back from season 6, and that was in 2022. So 3 years later, he got a lot more stuff going. He got his own. He rebranded his podcast. He be talking to everybody on Threads. Like, all you got to do is say, "Hey," he probably gonna comment on it. And try to be your friend. What else? His podcast is growing. His Threads is popping. You let me tell you something real quick. I knew I wasn't a hater when I see people succeeding and I get so happy for them. And it don't be like, no, how people be hating, they be like, that should be me. That should be me. I don't be me. Because I also believe too, when God is blessing people in your neighborhood, he'll meet here around the corner. So there's that too. But he's doing a lot of good things. He's an author. He's gonna teach me how to publish my book. He don't know that, but he will. So we got a lot to pick his brain about. This one is going to be going back to the old days of PSA. Before PSA, the Mental Health Podcast, we was just PSA Podcast. Back when we just used to have those debates, those conversations on camera, and my older family members used to be like, well, all y'all doing is laughing. The young people will like it, but the old people, old people. Yeah. So let me go ahead and introduce my guest today, and let's get started. Well, reintroduce, I should say that.
Appreciate you, brother, man. Thank you for having me back on. That's funny, by the way. The threads one that got me. That
But look, that's what you're supposed to do. And we not taught that in St. Louis. We taught in St. Louis, I don't know them. I ain't going over there. I don't talk to people I don't know.
yeah.
And where has that gotten y'all besides Walnut Park? I know nowhere, but I want you to say it. I want you to say it's gotten me nowhere. That's all I'm gonna say.
No, you starting early, man. No, I
Now,
appreciate that. Appreciate you, bro. Seriously.
okay, so you reintroducing yourself. So obviously, audio, they can see everything, and the YouTube people can see everything, but audio people can't see you. They can hear you. So can you tell
Yeah.
the people what's your name, where you from, and then where do you live now?
Yeah, man. Name's Rashad Young. Born and raised in St. Louis. I actually just moved back to St. Louis. I was in Chicago for a year. Kind of like you mentioned, man. Author of two books, Renew and Be Formless. Have another one coming soon, so super excited about that. New to the 30 Club, which I'm really excited to be on this episode about. So I have a lot of insight and excitement. I'm really excited to kind of dive into. Counselor, therapist to be at the end of that stretch, about to be a licensed therapist. So I can't always say therapist. I always have to say counselor and trainer, but I will be a therapist within the next couple of months. So super excited for that journey, man. But always a pleasure to be back with you, bro. So appreciate you again.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're here. And like I said, we're definitely gonna probably bring you back in a few seasons once you get all the way licensed, and to see from that angle, we're gonna pick your brain from the clinical aspect. So we'll get to that, when we get there.
Yeah.
But so you told us a little bit about what you do, but I want you to really go into detail about like how did you get into the profession you got into now? Because was you doing that back then in 2022, or when did you make that decision? Because that was 3 years ago.
Yeah,
As
no,
crazy as that sounds.
2022. I probably just started the program. So I mean, I think originally I was in higher ed. And I was working in admissions and career counseling. Mom always saw me as a therapist, really, and I kind of got to a point where it was a little fascinating to me. I've always cared about psychology. Probably should have went to undergrad in Mizzou doing that, but instead I wanted to be a pharmacist and almost failed out. So I had I had a passion for education, and people have always had a curiosity. But the other part is too, it's a need, and I kind of knew that when I first got into the space of. I was always told how much of a unicorn I was going to be, just being a black man in counseling, especially a younger one at that. So right now, it's just the goal is to just continue to build healthier mindsets, build hopefully healthier relationships with people, and maybe at some point maybe get into the marriage and family space and build healthier family. So I just always had a care for people and psychology aspect, and then being in therapy myself. I think it's been a great need to add on with to my skills.
Okay, and it's something you said, and I'm gonna touch on later when we get to that segment.
Sure.
Now you have a podcast. We all know that. That was back then. You didn't rebrand it just yet. Because when did you
No.
officially rebrand it?
Uh 23, probably right before I moved to Chicago. So maybe end of
Okay.
22, 2023. And then I feel like kind of like what you mentioned, man, kind of going back to the bread and butter. I was doing a lot of solo episodes, and then interviews were kind of like always been my thing for years. And I really kind of ramped that back up over the past couple of months. So I've had some surprising big guests. I think more surprising than I ever thought. But that's kind of the beauty of social media and putting yourself out there, and it's kind of put a battery in my back to know that I can get into those spaces with those more higher profile people because it's just putting yourself out there and they enjoyed it. So I know I'm on the right track, man. But yeah, the new podcast is called Knowing is Knowing. This is probably my I don't know third or fourth one I've been doing, like kind of like you said, man, reinventing myself. And I think each iteration of it, I think I've just tried to stay true to myself. And I think this one is just a deep conquest of understanding who I am as a person and answering some of life's deepest questions because that's just who I am, but also interviewing people and getting to know them and their story. I think, we often see people based off of what they do on social media, and I like to get into the humanistic side of people, regardless if you are a millionaire or you're just somebody who's trying to figure it out. I think we all have a story that somebody can uh, hear and find some inspiration towards so they can grow and become a better person.
Definitely. What guests have you had that really shocked you, and what was the conversation about?
Yeah, I would say I've had a mix, man. I would say that the two bigger ones was Jason Whitlock, who's a sports analyst, and I know people got their views on him because of who he is, but they get a chance to really talk to him and to connect with him on just on the humanistic side, outside of the stuff he's done with ESPN and what people may think about him today because of his takes. I really got a chance to understand that really you can do whatever it is you want to do, regardless of what it is. And I think sometimes we think somebody that's that successful now, they always knew what they wanted to do, and it literally took him the end of his college career in football to kind of really get his life together. And then another person, there was a couple of people. There's another person named Taylor Davis, who's a therapist. That was really well. She really just kind of opened up my eyes to the importance of psychology and just also just get into the space. I always think she's great in that space of helping people really understand themselves. And then there was another person named Melissa, who's also known as Millennial in Debt, who has a really big following as well. Started off as a teacher and paid off her student loans pretty much as underneath a teacher salary. So learning more about money and understanding that money, it doesn't matter how much money you make, it's how you utilize it. So those probably been the most, I guess, useful people the past couple months.
Now, did you do one with Phenom?
Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Phil, I'm sorry, Phil. Phil, I'm sorry, but Phil, yeah, Phenom was good too, man. Really knowing a lot of just the different things, but also just how his story went. He had a very unique turn on how he got into that space. Things just kind of fell into his lap, man. And again, to me, that was when I realized how important social media was. I never met the man a day in my life, but the fact he took the time out of his day to give me some insight and learn more about him. Some people will be acting weird and they want to charge you. A lot of this has just been off of the strength of relationships. So no, Phil, I'm sorry. You was definitely the first one and had one of the best ones too, man. No, he was good.
I've known him since 2019 through social media because I started my podcast in 2018. So I've been talking to
Yeah.
people online from this stuff since then.
Yeah.
So, it's some people I know just off strength. I mean, I naturally was like this anyway, but social media definitely increased that. And, I got friends to this day, and we're going to talk about friends a little later too. But who will be like, oh, I'm scared to talk to people online because, I'm scared. I'm like, well, your life sucks now. So maybe you should try. Maybe you should do something different. I don't know. Ain't nobody finna kidnap you.
No.
Like people be thinking somebody gonna kidnap them. Now I will say it's a movie I used to champion. It used to be on Netflix back in the day, and it's actually on Tubi. The day that Tubi charges is just gonna be the top 5 saddest day in America. But it's a movie called Megan is Missing. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
So it's about a girl named Megan and she's missing. But basically, she was a promiscuous girl who started talking to this guy online and he kidnapped her. And then her friend went looking for her and then he kidnapped the friend too. And you didn't have a good ending. I'm gonna just say that. But yeah. But I guess people think that's gonna happen to them. I'm like, what Plies say was like, you try to rob me and I might rob you. That's how I feel. So you can try something, watch what happens.
Yeah.
All right. Now going back to the podcast. So again, you was on the episode about it's time to change your name. And that was the reintroduction of the new season of PSA or the new rebrand from PSA podcast to PSA the Mental Health Podcast. You've changed the name of your podcast, and then now we're going back to kind of like the roots. Are you into anime at all?
Kind of.
Yeah. Well, I know I don't watch Dragon Ball Daima, but that's like the new Dragon Ball series they got. Long story short, the people then turned them into kids. And in these kid forms, they then went to new levels. And I don't know. I was like, that's prophetic. And so I was just like, I took that as again, when you go back to your roots, go back to your old, what is it that you wanted to do? What is it you like to? Of course, that wasn't by choice, but that's when you're going to kind of launch to that next point in your life. Right. And I think that's kind of where we at right now. And when it's time, as far as like this episode, I'm 30 now. What do you feel like when you was about to turn 30? So you got to go back to when you was about to turn 30 because you're 30 now.
Right.
Did you feel like any like anxiety, any pressure, anything?
There's definitely like a seriousness that kind of clicked. I mean, I've always kind of taken pride in being a serious guy, but I think I had to do like a real like a real deep dive on myself. And I think my 20s was exactly what the 20s was supposed to be about, man. A lot of mistakes, some failures. But I think the anxiety kind of went away when I realized all the things I've already kind of experienced in my 20s. I'm like, other than uh, not having kids and not being married, it's just kind of like life has kind of been what it is. And just trying to take it more serious. So no, I think the anxiety was very brief, but I had to really be honest with myself on what exactly it is I'm trying to get to. Part of me was more frustrated when I realized, there's some years you feel like you just kind of trick it off, like you
Mm-hmm.
kind of mentioned. I wasn't really a heavy drinker, but I think of all the weekends I spent going out and what I could have been utilizing my time for it. I think that's the only thing sometimes where I get a little frustrated with. Not mad at where I'm at, but I think I could have been a little bit further if I actually took some things more serious a little bit earlier.
Yeah. And even just with this brief conversation right now, like that we've been on a little time we have, I think about we both kind of look at our 20s like we're in a bad time at all. But how, like you saying that we know we spent too much money on liquor and stuff, or like even with me, I had months where I was should have paid off debt. Like, why you got all this money, you over here, and you could have really at the time you could have bought the shoes and paid on the debt, but you didn't even think like that. And
Yeah,
it's just like, dang, I wish I did, because when I was a full-time entrepreneur, you working full-time entrepreneurship, you might wake up one day and get $700, but you can't just blow it like that, because you have to remember you don't have a regular job. So it might be weeks you hit 2K, it might be another week you hit $60, and it's like you kind of gotta hold on to it, so you just never know.
yeah.
Now, I did an episode many years ago. I did a series many years ago. What was that? Was that season 6? I believe so. And it was called, same series he was on, and it was called Quarter Life Crisis,
Yep.
because it was for those who because that was an actual term, because people didn't get, turn 25 and think their life is over because they ain't married, don't have kids, and then now we 30. We now, for some people, they didn't went from quarter to midlife. They ain't even get no breaks. It's just they ain't get one or the other. They had both. So I'm gonna ask you a few phrases, and I want you to tell me first thing that comes to mind. So the first one, midlife crisis.
Uh, Usually in the 50s.
Feeling lost.
I feel like everybody feels lost almost every day.
And then reinventing.
Have to do it in order to get to where you want to go.
All right. So the definition of midlife crisis is an emotional crisis of identity and self-confidence that can occur in the early middle age. Feeling lost, feeling disconnected from everything around you, and then wondering about the point of life and what to do next. And then reinventing, change something so much so that it appears entirely new. And I think that's in a season a lot of people, if they haven't started, they want to. All right. So let's get into the next segment, which is, what does this have to do with mental health? Now, my first question, going back, because I pay attention. I'm a journalist. You said you went to therapy and you found out some things. Before going to therapy, were you against it or for it?
I was always for it. I just don't think I just don't take the initiative to. I've always taken pride in being so reflective that I can figure out my own problem. Yeah.
This is my thing with that. Now, I've been to therapy twice, and I actually will go again. Both was free, because one was through my college, and then the other one was when I was in education. So both was free.
Yeah.
I hear so many people, especially black men. We had a panel. Hint, hint, you might be on the next one. But we had a panel last season, and we had two guys on there. Was like, I'm not shaming anyone that goes to therapy. It's just that I feel like I shouldn't have to pay for advice. And it's so sad that so many young black men think like that they're
Mhm.
just paying for advice, because, and not saying them to, but it's so many black men would be like, well, my friends are my therapists, or, I can figure it out. And I know y'all personally, you're not very smart. So if you're not very smart regular, how you gonna figure out the problems?
Right.
If you was brilliant regular, I might be like, all right, this Dexter's laboratory right here, so he got it, but you're not.
Yeah.
So my thing is, what would be your take to somebody, because you're actually being trained in this, so you'll have a better response to me. So
Yeah.
what would be your response? Somebody was like, say to you, man, I don't need therapy, man. I can figure it out on my own.
Yeah. It's
What would be
valid.
the right response to that?
Well, I mean, the hard part for me is always like that fine line because when I originally heard it kind of makes me want to roll my eyes because there's an ignorance I think that people just don't want to admit that we all need some sort of help. The other part is that you don't go to therapy for advice. You don't really, therapists, the job is to kind of help you figure things out, and everybody's style is a little bit different. I like to say when I work with my clients, my style is more of a conversation building story type of thing. So I'm not really giving advice unless you're asking for it. I'm just trying to help you kind of dig and dive deeper. But the other end too, I think people have their opinion. That's fair. I mean, I do understand the cost of therapy. I mean, therapy isn't necessarily cheap, especially a good one. Uh, but I would challenge people to do it at least for a month and actually do it and be honest. Because I think my first year, because I've been in it for about three, my first year I was still lying to myself. I was kind of giving half answers, like I'm struggling, I'm finally, and then it's kind of like I'm still showing up with the math. And for black men, I think we already kind of do that on a daily basis because we want to appear as Superman. But that's why a lot of us are also so short and we have terrible coping mechanisms because we don't necessarily know how to deal with those things. So I would challenge somebody who does feel that way to actually, be honest with yourself. It's okay to say that you need help. Again, I don't think therapy is the number one solution for things, but I think when people make that statement, it's rather ignorant if you haven't already experienced it, or if you had a bad experience because you had one bad therapist. Because not every therapist is a good therapist. Just like not every teacher is a good teacher. Like every barber is not a good barber, right? You just gotta find somebody that fits you and what you need. But to just say that naturally, that's a little ignorant to me.
I just feel like we in the information age, so I feel like when people say stuff like that, it's like you just ignorant, and it's unfortunate because you say stuff to like that in a room full of people, especially homeboys, and you bragging on something and they internally going through it, and because they care what people think about them, they're not gonna say nothing, and then those would be the ones who harm themselves, which we've seen before. And then the main people who think like them people would think will be like, man, I wish you just would have told me, I wish you would have just opened up to me. We see how you think about stuff, so why would they feel comfortable to share something with you when we hear what you say regularly? And I
Right.
think people think that they can talk past. I don't know what people think when they do stuff like that, but well, they don't think. That's the problem.
No.
And we kind of see them where that's getting us in today.
You gotta be
Um,
intentional with that real quick. Like that's what I want to say. Like when it comes to like working on yourself, it has to be very intentional, like deliberate process. Like talking to your dogs about your problems isn't probably going to solve the problem because it's naturally biased. Uh, like you said, I know you. It's not going to necessarily hit the same versus somebody who doesn't know you because they can probably dig in spots where your dogs aren't necessarily do.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. They know you, so it's like they're gonna say things a little differently. They're gonna naturally try to be on your side, or if they secretly have, and I'm not saying this on no petty stuff, if they secretly have like resentment or secretly don't like you, which is a thing,
Right.
they're going to say the opposite, like, "Oh, you tripping, you crazy," or "It ain't that serious," and then it really is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I hopefully at 30 we should be able to ask and talk about that. And we may do an episode later about friendships when it comes to that later. But and I think we will. We're going to. We're going to. But it's just interesting with friendships because it's just like when you really doing what you're supposed to do and you doing the work mentally and especially spiritually, especially for me, you look at a lot of friends differently at 30. I know I do. And it didn't happen right when I turned 30, like, all right, 30, I see it. It was like the last days and where I'm at now, like the last, but I'll even say halfway through 30, and there's certain things certain friends would do. And I would be like, and I would always notice it, but it kind of got to me a little more like, this is not right. Or like, I don't think I want to take this type of person into my next decade because this is how I look at it. We grown.
Yeah.
People say this is a way to avoid communication, but that's not the case. Certain people, not I don't believe in changing grown folks. That's one thing I don't believe. And I believe that you can voice what you say to people because some people with certain people I've kind of distanced from or just in my life, they'll be like, well, you couldn't have had a conversation. I say certain people not gonna hear you. And certain people, because they know you, they're like, you tripping, or oh, you overreacting, or nah, basically shut you out. So it would get hard to talk to them because it's like they're not gonna listen to you no way. So you just have said, I've accepted this is who you are, and I can say, you know what, it's not working out. We had a good run, you know. Have you had to say that to anybody since being 30?
Yeah, 100%. The step, I don't think, again, I agree with you. I don't think a conversation always needs to happen. I think, again, it's really paying attention to what's important to you. Uh, Fortunately, as far as my friendships, a lot of them I've known since I was a kid. So that part, yeah. But I think when it comes to, maybe people I've met, fly by night people, no, of course, people kind of came and went. Because I learned that a lot of my dynamics were a little bit one sided. The relationship only stayed if I stayed in communication with them versus the other way around, where it's mutual. So no, I mean, yeah, when you catch on to those type of things, it's not really hard to kind of let them go. It's not really having a conversation, and then also just my thought process has changed. Where I'm trying to go is a little bit different than where they are, and I'm not in the space to want to necessarily carry uh, dead weight when it comes to what I'm trying to do. And then not to say they're bad people, it's just they're not really not in alignment to what I'm trying to do right now.
Since being 30, one thing as being a content creator and entrepreneur is always irritating me, especially being from where we from. But people who are scared to do stuff. Like so many people have wonderful ideas and they never act on them, or they'll start it and be like, no. And I'm the type where it's just like, so you just okay with just being average. You just okay with not stepping outside the box. I think people are so scared of failure that they can't push past that. And one of my prayers is that I pray that I can be used as the person to show that it can be done, so
Mhm.
that people can say, if he can do it, I can do it too. Because so many people are just stuck in just, I look around sometimes, especially, and I hate to say it, when I go home and I listen to certain people and look at certain things, and I'm just like, this it? Like, what's this? This is the highlight of your life. So many people get stuck working a job. So many people get stuck, dealing with baby mama, baby daddy drama. So many people get stuck with just, it's just, I don't know. And I'm not trying to be judgy when I say that, because I know that could come off that way to somebody like, oh, so you think you better? No, I don't think I'm better. I want better, and I'm actually striving for it. I'll say that.
Yeah, unfortunately, you just can't control what other people do. I mean, I get it. I mean, where we from is there is a certain mentality, and I can understand why people have their viewpoints. And yeah, some people just never change, man. When I did my year away in Chicago, I mean, like coming back home was like night and day. It made me realize like how much home doesn't actually change. It's just where we are, and it's just the mentality of how people is, man. I just learned at some point, people gonna do what they gonna do. I just learned not to say anything anymore. I don't think there's nothing wrong with the observation though. It's just facts. Like people highlights are very low, and people are afraid of failure, and really it's judgment. And it's like trying something different that most people don't do within their circle. They're afraid of being judged and criticized for it.
Okay, so now it says that I got some notes for you. Turning 30 is a significant milestone that can profoundly impact men's mental health. Here are three ways in which this transition affects their mental well-being. It says the first one is increased anxiety and stress. According to Manulife, men in their 30s may experience heightened anxiety and stress due to evolving life responsibilities, such as career advancement and family planning. These pressures can lead to changes in sleep pattern, mood fluctuations, and withdrawal from usual routines. They left out going bald. I'm thankful, and my lining is still here. But I believe, on top of good genes, I wouldn't like the rest of these club goers where every weekend they was getting their haircut every weekend. I'm like, bro, you was pushing your lining back. What was you doing? I don't care how good your barber is. And then you call me cheap. I'm not trying to pay $60 every week, because back in the day, haircuts was only $20.
They were.
Now they $60.
Hmm.
So 60 plus 60 is 120. Then another 120. That's 240 a month. That's a bill on haircut.
It is.
The next one is the emergence of 30 syndrome. So the source, which is Istanbul, it says notes that 30 syndrome refers to the stress, uncertainty, and anxiety individuals face as they approach their 30s. This period often involves feelings of restlessness, frustration due to aging, career uncertainties, and unfulfilled past goals. Are there any unfulfilled past goals that you have that you felt like I should have had this done by 30?
Um, I feel like that shifted. I think at one point, yeah. I think I used to put a lot of time, always put a lot of focus, emphasis on time markers. I thought I would have had 3 or 4 books out by now just because of the ones I've written and how many I have like halfway done. I think career advancement wise, yeah, but I think I got to a point, man, where I realized, most men don't hit their prime until their 30s. And I think that's when I really kind of laxed back. Um, because you can have it good in your 20s and you can lose everything in your 30s, or vice versa. So I think I stopped focusing on the pressure of things. But no, definitely, it's a couple things I can think of. And people I've been with, bad choices, whole bunch of stuff.
Been with like how, like friends, or you talking about relationship?
Both relationships and friends. Now, if I can go back in time and erase a couple of them like they never happened, it never happened.
So if somebody asks you about certain people, like I don't know what you're talking about.
100%. Yeah, we don't talk about that. And it's not like a shame thing. It's just kind of like I don't really. I learned from them, and I'm one of those people, man. After a while, like if I can make peace with it, I don't really think I need to go back and involve them. Somebody asked me a question about somebody. I very much have a good way of just erasing things as they are, like accepting it, dropping it right there, and moving forward.
Okay, okay. Now the third one we didn't kind of covered a lot, so we don't really need to go more in detail for real. But it just says challenges in seeking mental health or seeking help. It just says the time highlights societal expectations often discourage men from discussing mental health issues, equating seeking help with weakness. The stigma can prevent men in their 30s from addressing mental health concerns, leading to untreated conditions and exasperated stress. And again, like that stuff builds up, like eating bad in your 20s on regularly, you know, the stress that you keep getting past or going to go drink to try to, I seen a study now that even talked about drinking, talking about, I used to say like, oh, a glass of red wine. Now that's all coming out as false. And I was just like, well, I'm not surprised, but I know it was somebody thinking like, oh, they said we could drink one glass of red wine for our health. And that's why they drank one glass of red wine a day. Um, I guess, but to me, that even when you understand like about the sugar breakdowns and the bunch of carbs and everything, you was thinking you believe that. And even if they meant it, they probably meant the actual fresh wine, like the from Italy, not the box wine, not the Carlo Rossi, that big boy that's big and that you pouring up with your people and y'all and their couch sinking in from being drunk. Not that. So I think that's something that people need to keep in mind. But like I said, we already talked enough about seeking help. And I'm gonna say this before we go to the next segment. If you worry about or you are self-conscious, because this will be real, it's a real thing. Because I've been there. If you were self-conscious about getting treatment or going to get therapy and worry about what your friends will say, don't tell them. You lie about everything else. Just don't tell them.
Yeah.
Just don't bring it up. How would they know if you don't tell them? It ain't, you know what I'm saying? So just you don't have to say anything. Keep it to yourself. All right, let's go to one of the newer segments as we've created for this, which is man to man. So in this segment, since it's still the first new segment, when we have peer style interviews like this is where we just kind of talk about whatever the topic is and just kind of just have a man-to-man conversation, even though we've really been doing that, but we really drive it home here. So let's ask some good questions. So it's been some innuendos there. But in short, we asked the question. This is for the audience. Why do you feel men feel lost after 30? Society usually tells us to have a housewife and career by now. But is this real or just a trap? What you think?
Oh God. Uh, it's definitely a trap, but also it's real. It's a lot of it just depends on the person. Uh, I don't think we really keep in mind how uh, sacrificing it is to have kids how sacrificial it is to be in a marriage. I think men and women don't do well with that as far as like understanding that. And I think the pressure on men to provide, if we go off the numbers again, it's very hard for that man to be at a certain status by a certain age. And if you add in black men at that, we're adding more of a hardship behind that. So I think it's definitely a trap when the intentions of it alone is already kind of against the man itself. I think marriage is beautiful. I think having kids is beautiful. But I think a lot of things don't. If things aren't financially well for that man, it's going to be tough.
Are your 20s actually overrated? And what if your 30s are the real cheat code to success?
I think it is.
I think so too. And I'll say why I think so first and let yours load up.
Sure.
So I think that it's a cheat code for success because you still are young. Me and my homegirl was actually just got off the phone and we was talking about it. We was just talking about, I said, we got way more money. We look way better in our 30s than we did our 20s. Like, we make jokes and just in general, jokes are made about people who, back in the day, they always get around each other, especially the homeboys, but like, man, we didn't got big. I'd be like, no, 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 no. Y'all didn't got big. I was pushing 300 pounds back then. So that's a y'all, that ain't me. But also, some of us still have our hairline, some don't. We've talked about that in prior episodes. We talked about even money. A lot of times, I'm serious, I'm laughing. A lot of times, y'all, audio people, he keep laughing. But a lot of times our money is better. I will hope. But then not really. Because what if you fighting the debt of all this BS you did in your 20s? Then what?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of compounds. I think the only thing is you just know better. I think as far as the debt thing, I mean, if you own a house and pay a mortgage, you have debt. I think it's just how you look at everything. It's just you should know how to have better systems in place. Again, the only hard part is when you're trying to still figure it out and you're still kind of hopping from job to job, or your business isn't fully established. I think again that's what makes it a little more unique. Yeah, I think your 30s is a real cheat code because you kind of got answers from those mistakes in your 20s. There's millions of things I would do a lot differently because I already went through those things in my 20s that I wouldn't probably do again in my 30s.
Definitely, definitely. Now, another question I have. So, this is for somebody. The question asks, how do you pivot at 30 if you feel behind? And is it too late to start over? So, no, it's not too late to start over. As far as pivot, I know people who are 30 who are divorced. Even before 30, they was divorced. You know, Single parent household, somebody. I'm not saying this part I don't know, but I'm sure it might be somebody whose spouse may be in jail or who might have died, or you didn't see that coming at 30. A lot of times we think we get married, we have kids, and then we can play the credits to our life. Like, okay, we did it, go ahead, and this is all I want to do. I'm gonna say this: if you feel like you missed your purpose, then you don't know God for real. Because, and I'm not saying it saying like you slow or nothing. I'm saying it from the angle of you think you messed up God's plan. That's my thing to that. Like you outdid him, like, oh, I done messed up. This can't be fixed, this can't be solved. You got another thing coming, and it's also to show you that it might not have, you might wasn't supposed to blow up to 30. You were supposed to be grinding all your 20s with whatever you was doing, so that at 30, once you to put the groundwork in, you got some data to take. What's to say it's an opportunity where hypothetically, of course, somebody called the Breakfast Club called for a new co-host, and they like, well, we want Rashad Young, but we want him to come on as a guest, analyst for whatever, to speak on certain things. Well, he didn't got all these episodes of his podcast recorded. He doing good, so he know how to talk on the mic. Versus Rashad didn't start the podcast yet, so we don't even know how he sound. He looked good on paper, but we ain't never heard him talk. So how we know? And I tell y'all that to say, whatever it is you was grinding doing, sometimes you have to put in the work with no applause, no credit, no, support even. and you got to put in that work so that when you do it, you build up the data for it. Somebody made a comment to me recently. They was talking about my podcast, and they said, "How many episodes you got?" I said, like, over 200. They said over 200. I was like, "Yeah, like well over 200." They said, "Well, you gonna blow up any minute now, huh?" I said, "I guess." Um, you got to put that work in, and I think that's something that people are scared to do, and they might feel like they did it all for nothing. What would have you ever felt like you did everything that you did now? Does it ever feel like you've done it? It was all a waste. I'll say that.
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I think it's very natural to feel that way again when you're not getting necessarily the applause or recognition. And I think at least for me, I kind of got to a point where I've kind of learned to accept that most things probably take 5 to 10 years before it really fully blossomed. And then I have to have that realization of how much work did I actually put in within those 5 to 10 years. Have I been trying? Yes. Is there more that I can still do? Absolutely. But I think when I navigate those spaces of, feeling that with your question, I just kind of remind myself, like, there's somebody who's been doing this for 15, 20 years. Think about, artists. Some people paintings don't hit until they like in their 50s. They spent their entire life work trying to just, utilize their purpose. So kind of even going back to the purpose thing, our purpose is so dynamic that I don't know why we really fixate on, having a purpose by a certain age. Kind of like you mentioned with the God piece too. I think everybody tries to play God sometimes, and like that's not how that works, man. Like we usually get our purpose in the most, interesting moments of our life. So it is within these moments of when you're not getting applause or the support or other things like that, where when it does all finally hit, it all makes sense. So I just try to keep that in the back of my mind.
But even with that, like when we talk about people grinding for umpteen years, and they say it takes 10 years to become overnight success, what would be your response to somebody who feels like? Because I've heard people say it before. And they say things like, well, it may take 5 to 10 years to do this, so I'm just not even going to try it. Like I've known somebody, I've given people advice. I'm low key a creative director, but y'all enjoy it now because eventually I'm going to start charging y'all. So right now y'all getting it for free. But one friend, I've gave him so many advice on things to do. Like you should do this, you could do this, you could do this. And he just kind of was like, yeah, well, nah, that's going to take too long, or, that might take 10 years to get that. And basically saying like, I'm going to go do something safe now, while my dream or what I want to do, I could do, I'm going to do that eventually. What would be your response to the person that says, I'm going to do it eventually?
You're never going to do it. I mean, the reason why dreams are because it's in our mind. It's possible. I really am kind of concerned with that as far as people feeling like that, and a lot of it is societal because everything is microwavable in our world as far as information. But I don't, my question always is like, what do we get out of getting something in a short amount of time? Because the real issue is that you still have to sustain it. If somebody gave you $1 million tomorrow, yeah, like how many of us would actually trick it off? We got to sustain that money, or sustain that dream. So if people say eventually, I kind of smile and nod. I'm like, you're not going to do it in my head. Because it's never really a perfect time to do anything. Your first 20, 30, 40, maybe up to 100 podcasts probably going to suck. Your first business probably going to flop. Like, it just comes with time. You got to put in the work to actually get something out of it.
Now, the pressure to man up and have it all figured out by 30. Know the answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. Is it real or is it BS?
It's BS. I think if we take it from a black man perspective, I mean, like the ball kind of been behind the 8 ball when we were born. And again, what is the credentials or what is the goalpost set for? Because if it's to just be married and have kids, do we have a supportive partner in that space to help us maintain this level of excellence? I think that's a very performative based way of thinking. I really try to talk to my male clients about we should not live our life like that. I'm not saying to not be productive and not work towards something, but to not do anything or to be striving to do something you just don't hit it by a certain age doesn't make you less of a man. And I think again that we're competing against a invisible window that is not realistic, with a few selective people that people are trying to idolize and imitate as their way of life, and that's not fair to the other 98% of men who are trying every day, to be something better for themselves and hopefully their family. And it just may not hit their stride. That's it. Like it's just everybody's timing is different. It doesn't make them less than if they're not doing something.
That's a bar. Like everybody's timing is different, and we're gonna get into some more stuff about timing as we kind of wind this up. But let me go ahead and let's launch to the final segment for today, which is the weekly sabbatical. And this time we know we just kind of reflect on some things. So real quick, you kind of talked about. So I want to kind of really unpack that a little more. You talk about working with male clients. So you're a therapist in training, correct?
Yeah.
You're currently a high school counselor, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you talk to people all day.
Yeah. Counseling all day.
How is that for your psyche? Because I feel like that's a lot.
Man, I feel like it's what God's called me to do. That's what my name means. What God means to be a counselor. So I think I live in that purpose every day. It's not as bad every day. I mean, I think sometimes it's tough when you're trying to balance your own life, but I think you got to have the proper systems. I mean, I enjoy it really. I mean, I enjoy working with high school kids because they kind of give me a different energy, and the clients are a little bit tricky because I mean, I got men and women, and also got various ages. But my youngest, I think, is like 11 or 12, and I think my oldest is in their 40s. So it's kind of like that's when that requires a little more thinking. Everybody's different, but as far as the day to day, I mean, this is kind of what I've been looking forward to do. So no, it's not. It's been good for the most part.
Can you explain what it's like living in your purpose? Like, how does it make you feel? Like, obviously, you explained the job itself, but
Yeah.
actually living in your purpose. Because just to give somebody a breakdown of how that feels, because I think with like us people earlier, the eventually people, if they get that rush of what it's like to live in their purpose, they'll never go back.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's not always exciting.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
right,
I don't
right.
always wake up and be like, man, this is great. But I think as far as there's always, when I have doubts, at least I always get a reminder um, at some point that I'm doing the right thing. And usually it's usually from the high school side where a kid's having a bad day. There's maybe a relationship I was trying to build over the past couple months, and they come to me and they just so thankful to be able to sit there and talk to me about something and kind of seeing the kind of like the weight lift off the shoulder, especially coming to all boys schools. So it's a lot different. I'm literally working with mainly males all the time. So see that angle open, having especially teenage boys open up more. That's when I know I'm doing something right, because I'm thinking to myself, how many of us actually had a male counselor we can go to, or a male anything positive role model to kind of dump whatever it is and somebody an active ear and actually show like they care. Cause I mean, I actually care about what I do. I don't, I try to treat every person the same way, whether I have the energy or not. I try to give them my attention and try to help them. So, yeah, it's not always exciting. I always think about what else I could be doing, but I also know at the end of the day, I keep finding myself here for a reason. And I think at some point I just learn to accept it and just know that maybe there's going to be more that comes from that, but I'm definitely in the right place for sure.
I got a quote, and I seen this, and I'm gonna, like I said, we're gonna add it in. So it says, "Thriving in the 30s." It says, "You hit your 30s, and suddenly your life looked nothing like you thought it would. No marriage, no dream, no house, no kids. Just you navigating, healing, unlearning, and trying to trust the timing of your life. Most days you're fine with it, but then there are those quiet moments, the scrolling too long on social media moments, the watching friends reach milestones you haven't on moments. And suddenly you wonder, was I supposed to have it all figured out by now?" But here's the truth. You're not behind. You're just on a different timeline. And if that's you, you found a page that's made for people like you. Now, I like that comment because it just proves that there's other people like you at this point in your 30s. And what's to say you ain't hit 30 and you meet the love of your life when you about to turn 31? And then guess what? You get married right before you turn 33 and you had your kid and you still did everything that you was thinking you was late to do at still a good age. But a lot of times people make jokes like they were like, because it was a rumor that I shaded people that got married early, and that wasn't the case. All I said was a lot of them didn't need to be married early because most of them are now divorced. So clearly you didn't. But there are still some who got married at 21, 22 and love being married, and that's great. But it's just a lot of people wasn't ready for that because a lot of these men don't know themselves yet. And not saying you can't not know yourself and get married, have a thriving marriage, but you about to have some bumps and jumps because you don't know yourself all the way, and there's a lot of stuff you're gonna have to work out through the process that you should have worked out alone. But
I mean, I agree before. I mean, I don't think anybody should get married to at least 25. That's another combo for another day. You don't know yourself. Nobody knows themselves. And again, marriage is sacrificial. I don't think people really know what they sign themselves up for. It's more than just a wedding. It's like an actual job. You're supposed to serve for each other. Most people fail at doing that. That's why divorces happen. But that's all I got for that right now.
We'll bring you back a little later. Now, this comes from Genesis 41 and 46. It says, Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from Pharaoh's presence and traveled throughout Egypt. It was at 30, Joseph went from prisoner to prime minister. His years of struggle prepared him for leadership. Then we got Luke 3 and 23. Now, Jesus himself was about 30 years old when he began his ministry. Jesus started his public ministry at 30, marking the beginning of his 3-year mission that changed the world. Now, we see something here. It was 30. Everybody was around 30. So not saying that somebody, but what if Moses told me to start at 26? Then okay. But what I'm saying is if we have biblical figures, the book of books telling you that these main characters was around 30, just relax. Even if it ain't for you to 33, but just relax. Like if you're not there yet. But I also have to ask you, are you in your purpose? Are you moving like you're supposed to be moving? Are you where you need to be? Then it says, what preceded the public ministry? So for Joseph, he was falsely accused and in prison, testing and refinement. Genesis 39, 20 through 21, Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, but while Joseph was there, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor. He was wrongfully accused of attempting to assault Potiphar's wife and thrown in prison. Even in prison, he found favor, demonstrating that God was preparing him for something. And many men fell trapped in prison season, but those are oftentimes of character development. Also, while he was there, he was doing the thing with the dreams, as far as, he was giving, unpacking people's dreams. But that was his purpose. He was still operating in his purpose, doing what he was supposed to be doing. So let's go back to the content creator. You not getting the looks you want. You're not getting the views you want. You steadily posting and you like, I only got 100 views. I only got 2 views. I've said this before in this podcast. I'm going to say it again. If you can't stay consistent with 100 views, why would you get 1 million? Every social media platform tell you to engage with the people on your social media when they comment. You won't engage with the one person, your mama, that comment, but you want to engage. You're going to engage magically with 500 people you don't know. So the point that I'm making is you don't deserve the next level if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing here. Because the test is what you're going to do now. And a lot of y'all have failed that because you're thinking, well, I'm going to just wait for this to happen. And that's not how that works. I had a friend one time that said, who super plan their life. And sometimes men, I feel like we try to plan our lives a little too much because men are more logical than women. No shade, just saying. And so we try to plan everything and be like, oh, like I had one woman said, I'll get in a relationship like 2-3 years. I'm like, you can't plan that.
You can't.
You might meet the love of your life tomorrow. What you gonna say? Oh, give me 2 years. Like that. People are crazy. What was I about to say to you? I was going to ask you a question before I read the next part. Let me read the next part, then I go to the next one. Sure. So then it flips again. It says, and what proceeded for Jesus? So it says his 40 days in the wilderness, testing and preparation. Matthew 4:1-2 says that Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. After fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. He went through intense spiritual warfare, fasting, and temptation before his ministry. So even with that, you had to go through that pruning process. You have to go through that season where you are. I don't believe that we should live isolated, but there are going to be isolated seasons. But what are you doing in that isolation? Because if you're just laying around moping, we all have times to mourn, right? You might go through something and you might need to just mourn for a little bit, but okay, after a little while, okay, we got to get up. We can't just do this forever. Have you had clients who are in their wilderness, testing morning season, and the world would just seem like it was just like they was always going through something?
Yeah, but I also think it's always interesting when you're going through it. Around the same time of helping people. I feel like that's what I was really at last couple of months. Really, is yeah, it's like this weird isolating. I mean, definitely pruning, asking a million questions, but also still trying to show up for the people. I mean, these are things that I feel like have to happen to really grow. From the And I think in those moments when I've tried to pray about it more or talk to God about it, as again, I'm often reminded that I'm gonna be handed heavier things to carry because this is the purpose that has been set out for me. And so the fact that people are opening up and being honest with themselves, I think is great that I can help them out in that. But also, like, being in the storm while they're going through storms is always a little more unique. But it's something that I learned to be more grateful about because you still get a chance to do something, man. I wish people really understand like how beautiful life is. We're so fixated on timelines, and we really don't have any control on how long we're gonna be here because we're not all gonna be here. Like everybody got an expiration date. So while everybody over here fighting, well, they specify who not cooking something. Like there's so many things we could be fixing up going into our 30s. Like seriously, like we should be focusing on what we can control more than what we can't. Long story short.
What is you said it's interesting because, and that's just how life works, because you giving people advice while you going through it yourself.
Mhm.
So what have you learned from, besides that, obviously, you go through stuff, other people going through stuff, but what else have you learned while going through your kind of refinement season as you're kind of helping these people get through theirs?
It's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes is, a true warrior cries in battle. Um, just kind of accepting that. I think something I've tried to do really well with, and because of the content I usually try to promote is more of like positive and reflecting, is to try to be honest and more vulnerable in those spaces when I'm not doing well. A very common question somebody asks you on a day to day, how are you doing? We actually say we're doing good. Uh, I've learned to try to change that. I'm actually not doing good, but I'll be okay. Something like that. Got to be honest with myself and really honor emotions. I really think that we got to do better with that. Especially again as guys, we don't do that well at all. We do not. We're not honest with ourselves enough. So really just accepting where I'm at and trying to be vulnerable with where I'm at and not necessarily allowing it to control me, but just navigating it better.
This is from another source. This comes from pastoraltheology.com. It says, is there a biblical significance to 30? Yes and no. It says that it talks about in Numbers 8:24, after having 5-year internship, the priest began a 20-year ministry, last from 30 to 50. Numbers 4:3, Jesus, our great high priest, followed the pattern in order to fulfill our righteousness. And then it gives the scriptures. It says, on the other hand, we read through the scriptures. It says, we see people at all ages being used by God. The fact is, it doesn't matter what age you are. If you have a heart to serve, he will put you to work. And then this person talks about that if you starts with having faith in Christ and trusting him in salvation, all possibilities are endless, and that he'll be able to do exceedingly above all you ask or think. And even with that, I just think that it's interesting to see how people they don't get it. And I say that respectfully. They don't get it. It's like we try to dance around everything only to come back home. And it's funny how we get into this conversation and we started off one way, we getting back here. You do all that to come back home because I've seen people in my family. You did this, it didn't go fast enough. We don't have, we as a generation don't have patience. So you supposed to be, let's just throw a career out there. You supposed to be I don't want to use podcast because I just feel like that's just too simple because we both podcasters. We just use, we both authors too. Okay, we just use that one. We supposed to be an author. You supposed to make your book. Oh, well, I got distracted because that's gonna take too long. It take too long for you to become, best-selling author. So let me go work as a teacher. And you was a teacher, and I'm gonna finish my book. I'm gonna finish my book, but I'm counting down to the weekend. I'm counting down to summer break, hump day, summer break. Let me relax. I had a long school year. Up the next school year came. Then you leave education because something happened. Now you didn't jumped over until you might be in the seat. You might be working in the office. Still ain't finished that book. I'm gonna get to it. I gotta do this. So I started some more of it, didn't finish it. And then you keep these jobs, and then one day something happened where, let's say you get fired. Get fired. Now you didn't get fired. You say, okay, I'm gonna just apply for another job. You apply for over 400 jobs. Nobody will hire you. What do you do now? Finally, you finally praying, asking God what to do. He wasn't gonna open the door till you did the last thing. You go and do that book. This is a scenario, so this ain't actually happened, but you go and do that book, and as soon as you put it out there, it's then blew up. And with always acceleration when you do what you're supposed to be doing instead of doing what we think we're doing. Because if we pray to a God that's so supreme and so divine, we have to understand it goes above how we think. And a lot of us actually are smart for real. So we can figure out stuff naturally, but imagine and understand that it's going to go above what you can imagine, above what you can put together. What's your take on that?
I mean, that was well said. I mean, I think it goes back to doing what we're our purpose and what we're designed to do. I think the biggest thing I've learned is I've been in my own way for a long time. And when I have those moments when I finally get back and things are coming to alignment, things happen a lot quicker. So I agree with that whole statement, man. It's easier when we do the things we're supposed to do. The more we push it off, the more we kind of delay in the things that maybe we're meant to have, or the blessings we're supposed to have.
Okay. Now, what was I about to ask you? So, real quick, before we end it off, you are a podcast. Obviously, we said that you got some episodes about purpose and things. And as you're going into now, do you do your podcast seasonally, or you just kind of just drop them?
I just kind of drop them. I'm on season 3 technically, but I just drop them.
So, what is the theme for this season of the podcast, or this? How do you come about getting your episodes together? And I'm asking for a reason. How do you come about getting your episodes together? And like, what is it, like a theme you go for? Or you just kind of something happen. Like, how do you go about it? Is there a script you have? What you do?
No, a lot of stuff is usually off the top of the head. A lot of it is it's pretty much based off of what I'm either feeling or reading. I tried to do the theme thing, and I've learned because of just how my brain works, it's hard for me to stay consistent with that. And so I just kind of stay with themes that I feel like are important to me. And it's probably around something that I've read or have been reading that's been in my mind. I think scripts are beautiful. I just think how my mind works. I really just go off of what I'm feeling at that moment and just try to deliver a message. So, I mean, a lot of it's been interviews, but a lot of it's just feeling based and thought.
So there are many tips I can give the people, and we can be here all day. But to end it off, I just want to give 3 strong tips for people who are 30, about to be 30, creeping up on 30, or you know what I'm saying? You might be a little after 30, but this still can work because you can reinvent yourself at any time. Stop laughing. So it says that this is a significant milestone for men and is often accompanied by reflections on personal and professional growth. So the first one is staying grounded in your core beliefs. According to Stephen R. Graves, it is essential for men to remain anchored to your foundational values and principles as you enter 30. The grounding provides stability during life's inevitable challenges and transitions. The second one says invest, and this is one we really didn't cover. Invest in quality wardrobe essentials. The Gentleman's Journal suggests that by 30, every man should own at least one tailored suit. A well-fitted suit not only enhances your appearance, but also boosts confidence in both personal and professional settings. Listen, you can get J's too, but you need to have at least one suit. Like, even if you don't work a regular job, and even if you don't go to, like, say, for instance, job fairs, and you're not in corporate America, you're a grown man. You need a suit. Like I said, even rappers got suits. So come on now. Gunna got a suit. Lil Baby got a suit. You're not finna let no nigga named Lil Baby got a suit. You ain't got one. That's crazy. The third one, embrace lifelong learning. Mark Manson emphasizes the importance of continuous personal development, engaging in new experiences, acquiring diverse skills, and expanding knowledge base can lead to more fulfilling and enriched life. Now, when I see engage in new experiences. That don't mean you have to like do no weird stuff like go eat no snail or nothing. But you need to be open to trying new stuff. And I think a lot of times, especially black men, we just kind of okay with the same routine. And me, I hate routine. And no, it's not because I'm a Gemini, because I don't believe in that. Because people be quick to be like, well, Geminis don't like routine. No, we're not doing that one. We did the whole As a Man Volume 1 last season about Zodiac. So if you haven't tuned into that, go check that out. Anything else you want to add to that list? Yeah,
Well,
anything else you want to add?
The Gemini thing was funny. I'm sorry.
I'm for real, because that's the thing. People be trying to blame stuff on Zodiac sign. Nah, gone.
I mean, I'm a Pisces man, so I understand. I sign gets dragged under the mud all the time, so I get it. I would say the fourth one maybe is I would say do consistent inventory on self. Uh, I always find ways to figure out what you can do to improve. You don't have to criticize yourself. You can be honest. So just like that weekly inventory of what I did good, what I could have done better, how can I improve? I think it's another good step.
Okay. And like I said, these are some great sources for y'all to look up if you want to. Mark Manson is a really good one. This article is titled 10 Life Lessons to Excel in Your 30s. So I think that's a good one to check out. All right. So now let me end up with the question, the challenge for the audience. Y'all make sure y'all do these. You win things, you win money. How do you feel about being 30? If you're not 30 yet, how do you feel about turning 30? If you have been 30, you might be 33. How do you feel about your 30s thus far? I want you to answer that honestly. It's no right or wrong answer. It's been a great conversation. Anything else you want to add or leave the people with? Anything you want to plug, promote?
Yeah, as always, make sure that first off, check out your podcast. I'm always grateful to be back on here, man. I always love to see the work you've been doing. I'm always grateful to be around people who actually take what they do serious, man. So to be doing 9 seasons is impressive. And, shout out to you. You can find me on all platforms with my name. It's literally Rashad Young on the underscore. I don't have anything cool like that. I tried to. It's just not me. But more importantly, for those who really just trying to navigate the space of mental health, like please go see help. Whether it's a counselor or somebody, just really be open-minded to really opening up ourselves. Mental wellness is important. I know some people think it's a hot topic, but it really is a big part of our life to actually help us grow as people. So utilize those services as you can. There are free services. Everything isn't expensive. Just take a step and see where it goes from there.
That's right. And just to reiterate the comment I made earlier when I said, y'all think y'all can figure out everything. And I know some of y'all in real life and y'all not very smart in real life. So I don't know why you think you can figure that out. Even if you're not very smart now, you can get smart. So don't think that just because you're not, you can't, start reading. And I know smart people who don't read. Start reading. Get you a book and start reading. I mean, even if you just want to read the Gucci Man autobiography, it's a great book. Start with something you like. You know what I mean? Everybody's not going to read the 48 Laws of Power. This is not. But, All right. So thank you for coming on today, y'all. Like I said, season 9 is mine, and we going crazy the whole time. So thank you again for coming on and leaving your great insight. And you will be seeing him again soon on a live stream and maybe a panel. PSA signing out. Always remember, keep your head up like your neck hurt. Remember who you are. Make your mind up. Don't let it make you. And remember, as always, I love us for real.